This one did the like rising tension a couple of times,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like, we'll get back to it later, and
Yeah.
then just moved on. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh,
Maybe later.
Okay. And then it's like, well, when is it coming? And then it would do it again, where it would raise it and be like, we'll get back to that one later too. Hello, welcome to the HolmFront. I am Tyler, your host, and to my right, as always, is Mitch, my overly artistic friend. Mitch,
Hi.
we saw something.
We did. We saw Weapons in the theater.
What'd you think?
I liked it. It was interesting.
The word that's probably going to be overused in this episode for sure.
Probably. I will say this right off the bat. This is a great theater experience, and the less you know about it, the better. And it's also really good for people who don't like horror movies very much. Like, this felt like if you're a horror movie fan, you take everyone you know who doesn't really care about horror movies.
Like,
and
apprehensive about, being scared.
And they're still going to have a really fun time.
Yeah.
So I feel like it struck a chord with that. Because even in the theater, there were a ton of people who were like freaking out over stuff. And I was like, that's not the kind of thing horror movie fans would freak out over.
Right.
So they were just like, oh, goodness. And then they got like spooked, and then they kind of settled. And then, they kept up with it.
It's not something that's going to inspire your nightmares too much.
No, I don't think so.
So we're going to have a spoiler-free section. And then, but before we start any of that, we do recommend go watch it. It's a fun movie.
Mhm.
I would recommend.
Yeah.
So we'll do this. We'll jump into spoiler-free right now. So in the spoiler-free, like you said, great theater experience. Would recommend. It was very lively in there.
Mhm.
A lot of laughs. It was like a roller coaster, because like there was like the shrieks almost when the moments came where everyone's like,
Yeah.
and then it wouldn't resolve, or it would shift over into something that was unexpected, but it wasn't quite your like average horror movie experience where it's just a bunch of jump scares the whole movie. So in that, I did enjoy that factor for what it was.
Yeah. I guess we should do a quick premise, but there's really not too much I want to say about that, because I do feel like it's super strong. Just the less you know about it, the better.
Yeah.
But basically, like, what they reveal in the teaser and the trailer is that at 2:17 in the morning, these 17 kids who all go to the same classroom, they just get up, step outside their houses, and then just go running off in like kind of half Naruto style run out into the darkness, and then they're just never seen from again. And
the claim they make in the trailer is that it's based on a true story, which is not true.
It's not.
Just so you're aware. We did some research. It's not true. It is a compelling premise, though. Just these kids up and just leave in the middle of the night.
It feels weirdly like it could have been true.
It does, yeah. And I think that's what got most people to go see it. Now, for what it's worth, I don't particularly care for the title myself. I think it's a little bit weak for the concept. And the concept itself is really compelling, though. So, like I said, I would recommend just going and seeing it for that alone.
Yeah, I was thinking about that because we saw it together, and you had mentioned that before. Do you think that a better title would have been 2:17? Because that's when...
That would have been interesting, actually, yeah. Yeah, when they all get up to leave.
But then you would have to get into like numerology and kind of figure out what's a good number to use. And then you might have to do like 2:16 or something or whatever.
Sure.
Because I don't know what the meaning of 2:17 would be, but you get what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Because typically... Oh, wait.
Okay, fair enough.
So you have a couple notes here. So we had an irregular format. Are you just talking with the mixture that they had?
Yeah, well, I thought it was worth, because you mentioned that it's a horror comedy mixture, and I think that's worth knowing if, in our spoiler-free section. But the other thing about it is that it has a very unusual format. I don't really feel like this is that much of a spoiler, but you follow 5 different characters throughout the movie, and so it'll give you like 20 minutes of one character, and then 20 minutes of another, and then 20 minutes of another.
Something like a vantage point.
Yeah, see, I hate that format, and vantage point is terrible because of the format, I feel. Even though that was like the premise to make it good, it actually made it worse.
Well, that one, you watch the same thing over and over and over. You just get a slightly different perspective. This one doesn't quite do that. They almost kind of loop into each other.
They do.
You don't see the same thing over and over. So that's what made that part nice. And then the characters themselves helped a little bit, depending on who you're following.
Yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag because that's the whole thing is that when you switch characters, it's almost like you start to switch genres a little bit.
A little bit.
And for some of the characters, it was much more dramatic, and for others, it was more comedic, and for others, it was more horror based. So it's kind of like they all had a different like role to fill, and because of that, it just makes for a kind of jarring experience overall.
A little bit.
So I didn't hate the irregular format. I'll just say that I would not be opposed to watching this movie again, and the irregular format didn't bother me. It typically does, so I guess it's to the film's credit that I was able to get through it and it wasn't that much of an issue. But it did kind of make me feel like it almost should have been a TV show by the time it ended, because it sort of like opens up avenues for a lot more to be done, and then they're not able to do that because of that restriction. Like if they had just followed Justine from like beginning to end, then we could have gotten a lot more about her character, and I was interested and invested in that, but because she has to share so much screen time with everyone else, it's like there's this an inevitable like taking away of that
dilution. Yeah.
And like you get to know more about her from the perspective of other characters, but it's not quite to the point that I would have liked. So that was kind of one thing I was kind of like, yeah, I wonder why they didn't just go with like a TV show given the kind of premise it was. Although you mentioned that it was, that, yeah, it's not true, and that is the case. But the writer, director, I think he also co-produced and co-wrote the music for it as well. He was pretty involved. Apparently, he wrote the screenplay as a reaction to like his own grief and dealing with a passing of someone very close to him. And he said that there were numerous parts in the story that were extremely autobiographical. But when I watched the movie, I don't know what on earth would have been autobiographical, because nothing in it seemed remotely plausible. I mean, not that it wasn't plausible, but just not like...
It would be very thematic at best. Like, it's not going to be any given instance or circumstance that would feel realistic. It's more of like what they embody.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get into that in the spoilers section. But yeah, when you said that and I was looking back through, like rewatching it, I was like, yeah, I don't really see... There were some elements that seemed kind of out of place where you might be able to formulate that into some kind of grief or experience or something, but otherwise it was pretty abstract for making it autobiographical.
Yeah.
I also heard somebody had mentioned to me that Jordan Peele apparently was trying to get the contract for this film. And I thought that was interesting given the format because of the horror comedy mix that he comes from, because he has such a weird past. Like, coming up as a YouTube star as this like comedic genius, and then to go into these horror movies that he does now, like it would have been an interesting mix to have seen what he did with this film. But as it was, I like what they did with it. I like the guy that made it. Very interesting bunch of choices throughout.
Yeah, very creative.
Yes. And in that vein, I thought one of the aspects that I really enjoyed with that was the cinematography. It's very motion based. Like, it's a very aggressive style, and it's not like exhausting, but he's got a constant motion type of thing where he's constantly following characters around, or if the person turns their head, he's like moving the camera with it rather than the shoulder over the shoulder shots that are typically found in these. It seems like he was using the motion quite a bit to build the tension, which I thought was really cool. His shots, I'm trying to figure out what I can say without giving too many of the spoilers, because like there's a scene specifically, without giving too much of the away, where he's following a character through a store, and he's got it right on her face, and he's going through the aisle, and she's kind of like chasing after him, and then in the background you can see someone following her. Every time she turns, that person goes out of focus, and then she'll come and turn the corner and she's always out of focus until they have the interaction and she comes into focus.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of motion for the cinematography. Like, it's not a lot of wide shots. It's not a lot of static shots. It's very kinetic is the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Which I really liked. I thought it was very engaging, and it helped the story quite a bit.
I think that's a great way to describe it. And I think it's interesting how you were picking up on like the motion of the camera, because my first instinct was more about like just kind of the lighting and the way that he had composed each shot. Like, yeah, I don't think this is too spoilery. Well, I'll save that bit for later. But one thing I can say is like some of the, darker, creepier scenes, they're really uncomfortable, like really unnerving, just from the way that the area was lit. Like it's super dark, but then it had this like aggressively cold palette.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It was just like,
Fair.
man, I was like, I just don't want to be here. Like that feeling came through so strong with it. So yeah, and like he uses darkness in a way that's really nice. Like
he does.
Looking at like a doorway and you can't see what's there. It's just pitch black. Or like focusing on like certain characters and not seeing what they see. But it wasn't like, it's hard to describe because it did not feel like that horror thing where they're like, oh, we're leading up to our scare, and the audience knows that, and like you know that, and they know that, and everybody knows that. I didn't have that feeling the whole movie. Instead, it was like, I don't know where this scene's going. But it's just to psych you out because then the scene's gonna pivot, and like it will give you the horror-esque thing, like it does deliver, but then it'll like undercut it with some humor, or then it'll like just pivot away from it, and then it's like we get some kind of interesting drama instead. So it was like, that's a weird, or like it would develop the mystery. So it would do different things. So it was very unconventional and unpredictable. And I think that's why everyone's enjoying this movie so much, is because it's hard to come away. It's kind of like, you know what it made me think when I was driving home is that with a lot of movies, there will be this sense of, like, especially like Marvel stuff, for example, or anything that's like a comic book, where everybody has their own interpretation of the character, and some people have more or less knowledge of the comics. And so we're all coming at it with all of this preconceived notion. Whereas when you see something that's just an original screenplay, your defenses go down a little bit, and you're just assessing it as a movie in and of itself.
Gotcha.
And when you infuse that with the personal experiences that the author clearly did, whatever those elements were, then that's disarming even more, because you're like, at least you will come away with it, whether you liked it or not. You'll at least be like, oh, well, like, good for them. They made the movie the way they wanted it to. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah, I did like how he played on those, because sometimes the traditional horror film will do that, where it builds this tension and then it doesn't pay off right away. But in that, it's usually paid off directly after. So they'll raise the tension and then nothing happens. And then like the person turns around or whatever, and then you get the jump scare. This one did the like rising tension a couple of times, and it was like, we'll get back to it later, and then just moved on. It was like, maybe later. Okay, and then it's like, well, when is it coming? And then it would do it again, where it would raise it and be like, we'll get back to that one later too. And then you got to wait. And so, I don't think there was any jump scares in this film. Like there was a couple that were extremely unnerving for sure, but there wasn't anything that was like traditional.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't. There was a couple of moments that made people in the back do that, but I think that was what you were talking about. Is that audience where like horror fans were bringing non-horror fans to see the movie, and they were just like, I don't know what to do with this. This is scary, but it was great. I enjoyed that.
Yeah. Well, and I kind of suspect that just because it was a full theater, and this is its second week out, and like,
is it really? I was actually surprised if that's the case. Okay.
Yeah, it's been out for I think at least over a week, and for it to have like a packed theater,
it was pretty packed
for a horror film. I don't know. I just can't. I can't remember the last horror film I went and saw, and the theater was just full of people.
It was really full, and we were surprised because at first you were like, we're sitting on the end in the middle row or whatever. We were all the way on the left side. And you're like, man, I was looking and all these seats were bought up and there was no one in there. But they all waited until the last minute and then just they all came through. And I was like, whoa, they are all here. But it was totally filled up. It was great. And it made for a fun experience because it was pretty vocal in there. It was like, because I was cracking up at some of those parts and I was like, I feel like I'm really loud in here. But then there was like this whole group behind us that were just having a blast.
Yeah. It seemed like everyone was just having a real fun time.
Yep.
So, okay, so we should wrap up and get into the spoiler section. But before we do that, so recommendation, but give me a star rating. How would you rate this film?
I'm juggling between a 3 and a 4. And I think the rest of this conversation will definitely get. It's something I would watch again, and I'd want to see where that landed me. So at the moment, I'll leave it with 3.
Okay.
I think I'll leave it at a solid 3. But it was such an unusual experience that it might lean towards 4. What about you?
I think I'm in kind of the same boat.
Okay.
I initially was like, this is like a 4-star movie when it ended. I really enjoyed myself. I love the ending. I thought that was fantastic. And then I thought more about it and I was like, yeah, there's like some things that don't really work. And like, there's some stuff that I don't know how I feel about. It's like I didn't get enough. But at the same time, like, I kind of want to go see it again. And like, I don't usually say that anymore. It's just like nowadays.
Especially not with a horror movie.
Yeah. Like, I don't really care to go and revisit it. But I would absolutely, like, if I had, like if any one of my friends was like, oh, I'm kind of curious to see that, I'd be like, I'll go with you. Let's go see it. Like, I would just go and do it right now. I would have no problems with that.
Okay.
So, yeah, I feel like that has to give it some bonus points. I don't know. It has so many things about this movie that are really unlikable, but because there's no movie like it, it just redeems itself. And you're like, oh, well, I guess it's one I'll not soon forget. And I think that's probably the best praise I can give it.
Yeah, even if you do forget it at some point, someone will bring up, did you ever see Weapons? You'd be like, yeah, yes, I did. Yep.
Yeah, you're like, oh, yes, I remember that one.
Okay, so with that, let's jump into spoilers.
Okay.
If you haven't seen it, just go see it. But when you do, come back, watch past this section. Still fun because it just goes straight to the same thing. Okay, spoilers. So let's go back a little bit.
Okay.
You mentioned, we'll just start on that cinematography. So you were talking about, I think you were going to bring up the door, correct?
Yeah, okay. So there's this doorway to this house, which is very suspicious house.
Yes.
And it's just like pitch black. Like they open the door and it's just pitch black.
Let me set up too. So the scene is that I forget what's the teacher's name? Justine. She follows this kid home. And so the premise of the film is that most of the classmates in her classroom, this one class, disappear, except for one kid.
Mm-hmm.
And so most of the people in this town who cannot find their children are blaming Justine. So Justine is trying to find answers. One, because she cares. Two, because she wants the pressure off herself.
Yeah.
So she latches onto this kid, which is the only other factor, this common denominator.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants to blame the kid, so they're all looking at her, and she's like, well, I can't look at myself, so I'm going to look at the kid.
Right.
So naturally...
what else is she supposed to do?
Yeah, exactly. I got to get it off my shoulders because I know I'm not in the wrong here. So she follows this kid home. When a kid gets home, she notices that all the windows are all blacked out. They have like newspaper or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And when the kid goes inside, it's still light outside, but the way that they lit the scene and the way the cinematographer framed it is that you see the whole house, doors very prominently in the center. The door opens, you don't see anything else. Like you don't see who opened the door. It just swings inwards, and it's just pitch black. And the kid walks into the black, and the door closes behind him. It's extremely unnerving. And so, like, she thinks that's weird at first. She goes and knocks on the door and stuff, and this whole other scene happens. We'll get into that in a second. But it does it a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's just it yawns open, the kid disappears inside, and you don't know what else is behind there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, whoa. But there's a scene that happens at night where she's like, I'm going to camp out and try and figure out what's going on with this kid because he won't talk to me.
Yeah.
She tries to open this conversation. He won't do it. So she's like, you know what? The best course of action here is I'm just going to stake out this house. That's what my job is. I'm going to do that.
The whole time, too, when we were going through her narrative, you were constantly like, what are you doing?
Yeah, why are you doing this? This is so stupid. This is a bad decision. But she can't help herself. So she's sitting out in this car, and this is probably one of the most unnerving portions of the film.
But it's worth discussing because this is a scene that got the theater really going.
Everybody, yeah. And this is probably the closest it gets to like the traditional horror film. And so she's sitting outside. She ends up falling asleep, as one does on a stakeout. And she stays there overnight.
Well, if you're not a detective, then yes.
Yeah, exactly. If you're not used to this kind of behavior or this activity. So she's sitting there, and it looks at her, and she's passed out, and then it looks over at the house, and the door pops open, and she's still sleeping. And so, like, the whole theater erupts at this point because it just yawns into this blackness again, and everyone's like, and then someone comes out, and she's moving real strange. She's just kind of like
this
like a puppet, like a marionette's like walking this lady over, and she's holding a knife. So it looks like something out of a Hitchcock film
or some kind of slasher. Just
exactly.
Like,
she just and see she comes over, and you can't see her face. Her hair's all disheveled. She comes over to the driver's side door, and she just stares in at this sleeping teacher.
Uh-huh.
And then she continues walking.
And so you start thinking to yourself, oh, well, maybe she averted the
safe,
crisis
right.
or whatever. Like, it's a different target this person's after.
And everybody's losing their brain. They're just like, oh my God, what's going on? And then it focuses in on the teacher and the car shakes because the back door has opened.
You hear the back door open. That's when everybody just went like,
yeah, it erupts. And these gas just almost screams. So someone gets in the back of the car and it doesn't shift. You don't get to see who's in there with her or what they're doing. And then the hand comes into frame with a pair of scissors and snips a bit of her hair, takes the hair and leaves. And then it ends.
Yeah.
It's like, what just happened? What's going on? It's so unnerving and it doesn't have a payoff. You think that it's going to be like someone gets stabbed or someone like you see like a horrifying face or something. It doesn't. It's just like, nope, that's enough. That's all you get. We're done.
And throughout this whole scene, there's zero music.
Yep. It's
and zero
quiet.
Sound, really. It's just like, except for like the opening of the car door.
Right.
You feel the rocky motion of the car, the snip, and like, that's it. So you're like just left, and like the audience filled that space perfectly. Exactly the way that they wanted us to.
Yep. They responded precisely the way that the filmmakers wanted us to. But the way it's shot, the energy of the scene, and then the way that it doesn't quite pay off in a traditional horror movie sense made that scene so much more compelling. I was like, okay, this is the way that this guy wants to do this film. And he does it throughout the movie. Mm-hmm. But that scene, I think, embodied it so clearly. So if you're looking, whatever experience you're looking for, this is what that experience is going to be. This whole movie is going to be just like that, except for some humor that they add in later.
Well, the tricky thing, and I'm kind of learning because I think you have more experience with horror films than I do. And so, like, as you're describing, like, how that scene traditionally would have gone is like, it would have just been like,
or something,
and overly graphic and, whatever. But it doesn't do anything of the sort, and it just ends. And like you said, it's not like they leave and then something else happens.
Right.
It's like, no, that doesn't pay off until like way later to the movie, if you can even consider it a payoff at that point at all.
Right.
So it's kind of like, and it almost like that comedy element, the film is very comfortable with that being there. Like when I was looking up reviews before, I went and saw it. I saw one comment, they gave it a 5 stars and they were like, the whole theater was roaring with laughter by the end. And I was like, but this is a scary movie. Yeah. I was like, so in my head, what I interpreted that, I was hearkening back to my experience watching Nosferatu, in which people were laughing at some of the scenes in that. And that's not a funny movie.
No.
And it was just kind of like, it was like this weird, disturbing thing that I like added to the film in that sense, because I was like, ugh. Like, what's wrong with this depraved culture that just, like, thinks this stuff is funny? This isn't funny. It's gross and depraved and whatever. But in this movie, they intentionally set it up so that it's like, hey, it's okay to laugh because, like, that's one of the intended responses you can have from this scene.
Yeah.
Like, with her jerky movements and the lack of payoff and, like, I got so freaked out, but I guess I didn't need to be.
Yeah.
Kind of tension in there is kind of interesting. Like, there's another one. I'm not going to go through the whole scene, but this character goes through this like harrowing like dream sequence, and it's really creepy and really unnerving, and you're just like the whole time, and then it ends with like this kind of jump scare moment, and then that's when the character wakes up. He's like, and then he's like, what the
and everybody was laughing at that.
Yeah,
and it's funny because it's Josh Brolin, so you have like on a meta level, you have Josh Brolin. And so what happens with horror films or in this vein, this like thriller vein, if you see a familiar face, you automatically latch onto that as like your security blanket.
Mm-hmm.
So Josh Brolin kind of serves that, right?
Yeah.
Because the other character, she's not as well known of an actor, but she is well known.
Yeah.
But you have the contrast of Josh Brolin being in there. And so if you have that contrast, you always know that one of the two could always go at any moment.
Oh, so, that's a good point. Yeah.
So that's the way they play with those things. So Josh Brolin being the like one with more gravitas and like the one who seems to have more of a motivation in the story is probably the one that's like safer. And so when you have him, even though he goes through this harrowing moment, he has a lot more leeway to add that humor in because he's more safe. You know that he's probably not going to have a consequence like other characters in the film will. So he has more leeway to like add in that moment that people can laugh at. So you feel a lot safer doing so. So when he like scrambles out of bed after this jump scare, he's like, "What the F?" Everybody's like, that's like a breath of fresh air, right? Like everyone's like, "Oh, he made it. It's okay. It's funny." Because we would all have the same exact reaction if we woke up from a nightmare like that.
That's an interesting point too to compare with, because they do the similar type of dream / jump scare moment with Justine's character.
Yes.
But that one's treated a little more seriously. When she wakes up from it, she's just like screaming lunatic, which is exactly what I would have done if I was.
Well, and they did a bit of a tropey thing there because she wakes up twice. She wakes up and then something happens and it starts to build the tension, and then she has her jump scare moment and it makes her wake up again or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's like that one, they're trying to push more tension into that moment, whereas Josh, it's like, okay, we got what we wanted from the scene. We're going to move on now.
Yeah. It's a weird movie.
Both of them were good. Like, it was great. But yeah, it's an interesting thing to see what you can play around with, and I think that's why they do it, is to give some of those moments more of this and some of the moments more of that. But that was an interesting contrast considering what they have in the film is that horror comedy mix. Because hers was more the horror and his was more the comedy. Yeah. But you can accomplish both in, simultaneously with either character.
Yeah, the fact that the film was content with the audience, like, I guess it knew that like horror fans, they laugh at horror movies sometimes.
Yep.
And because of that, it's like, all right, well, if you're going to do that, then I'll just create it. Yeah, I'll give you an avenue for which to let that emotion out. I'm not going to criticize, or I'm not going to take myself so seriously that it's like, well, you have to see this as this dark, dramatic thing. It was like, no, not really. You could just take it how you want. But then therein kind of lies, I think, where like that element of that movie, that this movie is working really well, the horror and the comedy and the mixture of the two. I think when it pivots outside of that range is where I start to kind of question it a little bit more.
Okay.
Because the movie, and this is like, it's not really a criticism because I enjoyed the movie, but it did leave me wanting more.
Yeah.
And I kind of wanted more of literally everything. There was not really anything that I felt like was enough to leave me with a satisfactory level. It was like everything needed more. I needed more character development. I needed more comedy. I needed more horror. I needed more mystery. I needed more, just so much of these different things.
And which is why you think it would be better in a TV show format where it has some space to breathe.
Yeah.
All those elements. Okay.
Yeah, and even like the music too. Like the music was very TV show like to me. It was an odd score because it would, and I was listening to the score on the way over too, and a number of the tracks, they were like building up to something and then they just stop and they're like, we're done. And I'm like, yeah, in a TV show you could do that, but like in a movie, that's such an odd way to do it, because then it feels like you don't care about where we were going with that and you're just like pulling us out.
Okay.
I feel like the biggest example, and this is the part where we should probably poke at the most, is like right at the midsection of the movie, because the third character you follow, he basically doesn't have any relationship to the actual like kids being missing or the horror thing.
He could have.
He could have, but he didn't. So like his story is, it's almost like it's 20 minutes of like this drama with this cop for some reason. And you're like, okay. And then when it switches after that, you're following this like homeless junkie character. And for the first like 20 minutes of his, that's what his is. And there's a lot of time just explaining like how he got to a certain situation. And all of that is like fine, but it also starts, at that point, I felt like, okay, like, where are we going, movie? Like, what are we doing? Like, what is going on?
Well, it spends a lot of time focusing on his drama rather than anything to do with the larger narrative.
Yeah.
It's just so hyper-focused in, and it's like, why am I I kind of hate this guy at this point. So is that what you're trying to get me to do? Which is what my theory is. But even so, it takes such a large chunk of the film to do that. Whereas in a TV show, you could probably get away with it because you're like, well, I got another episode or a couple episodes to go to get to this. But in a movie, it's like you have so much time dedicated to this narrative. Why do I care about this guy? Because this movie wants me to care, but I don't. Even after it was finished, I was like, I still don't understand why we got so much of it.
Yeah. The one thing I will say to its defense is that it's almost like if you were to just take it in a different perspective, right? So sometimes you'll see in a movie where they get an ancillary character and they will very quickly bring you up to speed on how this character connects with the larger whole.
Yeah.
And then they do something that matters in that moment, and then it's like we move on or whatever.
Okay.
Right? Sometimes movies will do that, and that's just it's usually like in an Abrams style movie where things are just really fast paced, and it's like, okay, well, here's this other character, and they knew this thing, and they were doing this, and they were in this right place at the right time, and so they said this, and like, it's like a show where they interview somebody or something like that, and then they explain like where they came from or whatever.
Sure.
But this movie is like, yeah, well, let's spend 20 minutes with that guy. That guy is now a main character. And this affords a kind of like weird trade-off. On the one hand, it detracts from the main leads that we were actually interested in and the main plot in a lot of ways. But at the same time, it elevates these other characters such that when they're in a tense situation, which is what happens to the druggy character, the tension, I think, ramps up in a very unexpected way, because it's no longer just, will this character survive that or not? It's just like, sheesh, like, I don't know what's going to happen because he dug himself into this situation, and I know exactly why he did that. But now it's like, I'm kind of feeling, okay, so let me back up. With him, he established the backstory. The druggy character, yeah. They established his backstory, and none of that mattered, and I didn't care. And I was just like, get rid of this character. What's the point? Well, then he, in a desperate scramble for some money, breaks into a house. And he breaks into the wrong house. And so then I loved the character because it was hilarious seeing how he was not recognizing the severity of his situation at all.
Which is where the comedy comes in. Which is great because it's situational and it's believable. They're not just throwing it in because it's like, no, this guy, he's so desperate for money in his fix. He doesn't really care what's going on around him. He just cares about what's going to get him to his fix.
Right.
So he's just robbing the joint and then realizes very, very, very slowly how serious of a situation he's actually in. And it's hilarious because, like, he does such a great job of this thing slowly dawning on him where he's like, it's so funny.
It was perfect. How he's like tweaking out too.
Because he's such an idiot. Like, he's intelligent in the way that, like, he just needs to get the stuff, right? Whatever the stuff is, something semi-valuable, that's all I care about. But it's funny because they set up in the beginning where when Justine, the teacher, goes and is pounding on this door because she's so nosy, she goes around until she finds a breach in the padding around the window. And so she looks in, and it does the horror movie thing where it's kind of like panning the camera. And then she sees there's these two, because it's completely dark in the house, she sees two silhouettes of these people sitting on a couch. And they're facing the window.
Right.
So she freaks out. But they don't move.
Right.
And so you're left to wonder, because you can't see anything. So you're like, well, are these like some mannequins or something? Like, are these just not actually people that are sitting there? Like, what's going on? Because nobody reacts to anything.
And she doesn't go into the house.
Right.
She calls someone to try to get them to do something, and that's about as far as it goes. So then you're like,
Yeah. But
or actually, I think she does the stakeout after that sequence because she's so suspicious.
And that comes a little bit later because she tries to talk to the kid. But because she goes up and talks to him, and he's like, don't follow me. And then she's like, well, I guess I'll follow him. So the payoff comes when the junkie breaks into the house. He climbs up to the second story, and so it's comedic because he's just making a bunch of noise, just pounding around trying to get into this house. He's like climbing up the side paneling, and he's like bumping on like the satellites, and he's like crashing into things as he falls through the window. And you're like, somebody in here is gonna hear him, and he thinks that he's got this in the bag. He's like, I've nailed this. So he's climbing down the stairs. He starts crashing around, picking up silverware and stuff. He takes this like pillowcase and he starts packing it full. And then he's like bent over looking at the DVDs. So he walks past the couch to the TV
where the two silhouetted people are.
So he's pulling stuff out and he looks into the TV and you can see in the reflection the two people sitting there. He flips. And the first thing he does, I'm sorry. And he's like looking, and these people are totally catatonic. So you find out that they're actually people. They're both sitting there, and they're like staring off into nothing. And he's like, he figures it out pretty quickly. He gets up and he snaps in their face and stuff. He's like, "Hello."
He has to test the water.
Yeah. He's like, "Hello,
At
are you
that
okay?"
point, I'd have booked. I'd have been like,
"Screw
nope.
this." Yeah,
Like,
I'm out. I'm so
no.
out. But he's like, "Well, it looks like I'm safe." So I'm just going to keep
They
going.
haven't moved yet.
Yeah.
So I suppose it's fine.
Just going to go jack the rest of their stuff.
Oh, what's this? Willow. Ah, yeah, I remember that movie.
That's awesome. So he goes through and he starts throwing stuff in his pillowcase, and you can see it's focused on him, but you can still see the two in the background.
Yeah.
And then they both stand up.
And you're just
and
like,
then the whole theater is just like, ah! So they start coming after him, and then he runs, and you find some stuff out in the basement. So the whole narrative of his gives him a good reason as to why he breaks into the house.
Mm-hmm.
Gives him a compelling narrative as to what happens around him, but it progresses the narrative.
Yeah.
So you immediately get invested because you have the tension of him breaking into the house, but you also have the narrative progressing itself forward.
Yeah.
That part's all nice because he actually does get out, which is a hilarious scene because they have a bunch of locks on the door and he's trying to get them all open before the two zombies get to him. So he gets out, he runs, and the funny thing is that no longer phases him. He's out of that environment.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter anymore. He's like, whatever, I got to get to the pawn shop to get some money so that I can get some drugs.
Right. He doesn't think maybe we should
Hilarious.
report this.
Yeah.
Or maybe that was weird. It's like something out of The Walking Dead.
Nope.
What's going on? None of that crosses his mind.
Straight to the pawn shop. So he's getting his stuff weighed out or whatever so that he can get his money. And he looks up and he sees this poster. And it says $50,000 reward. And it shows a bunch of the pictures of all the kids that are missing.
Mm-hmm.
So what he had stumbled into in the basement were all the kids. And he doesn't know anything about them. He didn't see them very well. He just stumbled in, saw a bunch of kids down in the basement. And the thing was, they were all looking off into the dark. And then when he comes in, they all spin around. And just freaks the whole theater out. And he's just he just books it. So he has no idea if those are the kids or not. But he does know, well, there were kids down there. And it might be them.
It'd probably be them.
And if it is them, I got $50,000.
Right.
And that's the only thing that makes him go and call the cops about it. So he hadn't. The only connection point here, going back to the cop, is that the cop had arrested him before, and he had a needle in his pocket. So the cop pricked himself on the needle and hit him, and it just caused this interaction where he's like, "Well, I hit somebody, so I've stepped out of line. I've caused some misconduct." But this guy pricked me with a needle. He didn't let me know that there was a needle in his pocket.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll just let bygones be gone. I don't want to see you again. I got to go get myself checked out. So we'll just pretend this never happened.
Mm-hmm.
So the only thing that causes it, the druggie tries to come into the police station in order to get his reward. And he runs into this other cop who doesn't want to see him again. And it leads to this other chase where then the cop brings him to the house. So the whole 20 minutes that you spent with the cop was just to get this interaction to happen, and it didn't justify itself well enough. Because I was like, well, you could have had pretty much any cop do this. I don't understand why you needed this 20 minutes of weird drama that didn't really have much else to do with the narrative in order to allow this to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Except for the fact that he also had a personal relationship with the teacher, but even then, you could have told all that from the teacher's perspective.
Yeah.
So there was too much padding of this cop's narrative in order to connect him to the junkie in order for this, the further plot points to happen. So it didn't justify itself enough to feel like it fit appropriately. And that was the point.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of it does pertain to the cop character specifically too, the more we're talking about it.
Yeah.
Because they introduce him in round 1. He interacts with Justine. They used to be a thing. And so obviously he's aware that the community is targeting her because it was her classroom.
Right.
And so, she sends him a text just looking for some kind of someone familiar.
Yeah.
His companionship of some kind. And so they meet at a bar and, they have a drink and they talk or whatever. But even that scene was over long. You do get to learn about the characters. But I also feel like as it was happening, I was like, this just feels kind of lengthy. It doesn't need to be this. Because in the opening too, the opening has this little kid, this little girl, I think, reading this monologue, and she just laboriously explains
it's long.
The premise of the movie that we all knew from the teaser. And it was we just don't need this much. In fact, we need none of it. You could do this all visually.
You could have had her just say something like, at 2:17 in the morning, 17 children got up and left, and this is the story behind that or whatever. This is the true
this
story.
is the true story or whatever.
And then just leave it at that. But she went into it for a while.
And it's just and then the adults blamed, this teacher and yada yada.
And then you get to watch the movie and see all the same things she just said. So yeah, between that and then this cop character, it seemed like, I don't know if it was a confidence thing, like they just weren't confident in the narrative upholding its own, its own structure.
Mm-hmm.
Don't really know. I will agree that part did seem like it was the most out of place of all the portions of the narrative, all the characters that you get to follow around.
And it's not necessarily for lack of entertainment necessarily. The first part with the little girl monologue, yeah, that part's just exposition, so it just doesn't need to be there. But the cop character, like, they do make an effort to make his scenes entertaining. Like, he has this interaction with his boss,
who's also his father-in-law or whatever.
Yeah, and it's just this really funny interaction because it's like they're celebrating like his boss's like
his
anniversary, and he's like, oh yeah, he's like apparently what's his name, Donna, his partner or whatever. He's like, oh yeah, apparently she's gonna be back early, so we can't make that dinner. His boss is like, you call me old?
Yeah, he's like, celebrating 30 years or whatever, huh? That's pretty good. And he's like, calling me old, and he goes, no, I don't. He's like, oh, I'm just messing with you. And it's just all straight faced.
Yeah.
And it's a really awkward situation because then he doesn't say anything else. He just continues on with his paperwork. So then the cop's like, well, guess I'll go.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good one, Chief. And they're just like, it was so awkward. But it's moments like those that add in that humor.
In that humanistic element.
Right.
So then they started to feel like, that kind of made me want that TV show because I was like, well, this character's great. Like, I want to know more about him. I want to see more interactions with this character.
You're talking about the chief or whatever?
The chief, yeah. But, like, really everybody. I mean, it's like they're portrayed in such a way as you're interested and engaged with them, especially because they're all really flawed. Mm-hmm. Like, really, really flawed.
Yeah.
Like, the cop character especially, like, by the end of it, I was just like, sheesh, this guy is just, what is wrong with this dude?
Total douchebag.
Yeah, like, to the max. But, like, technically everyone kind of had that to some degree. Like, Justine is like overly defensive and hyper concerned about herself and kind of an alcoholic. But then there were like other elements where I felt really bad for her because I was like, the whole town's attacking her and it's not her fault. And like, you do see her interact with the kids like later on, and then it kind of redeems her. It's like, yeah, she seems like she's a good teacher. Like, she cares about the kids and she's not letting discipline go unchecked. And that was like another nice moment too, because you see like one of the kids picking on another, and then she shuts that down. But the kid who's being the bully is Josh Brolin's kid, who thinks he's just some sweet angel.
Yep.
And so you're like, okay, well, that's his limitation now. He doesn't know that his kid is just a bully at school.
Right. But it also doesn't matter because at a certain point, it's like, well, they're disappeared, so it doesn't matter if he was a bully or not. We just got to find the kids. So, but yes, I get what you're saying there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so she had some redeeming factors. She definitely was like, dude, you got to tone it down a couple notches and quit just. It's straight to alcohol and to like home wrecking, essentially. She's like, well, companionship comes with this guy who has probably a girlfriend that he's lying about, but I don't care. I need something for me.
I need something for me, yeah, basically.
I don't like you very much. That's nasty. Yeah, to go on to that disciplinary thing.
Actually, could I say one more thing about that
Okay.
interaction? So I realized that when we got Justine's perspective, they don't show anything about their lovemaking. It's just their conversation at the bar, and then she wakes him up in the morning, and then they go about their day.
Yeah.
But when it shows the cop's perspective of that, in like all the other narratives, it skips over stuff that we've already seen.
Yeah.
So it just is like, we don't need those details anymore. So it just shows us the detail of them going at it, and that's it. But then it like said something about him because it seemed like that was the only relevant detail that he felt the need to share.
That's a good point.
From that interaction. Because like I was like so mixed when he was talking with her in the bar. He's like kind of supportive, but like really not sensitive enough.
He seemed like the voice of reason. And then it just crumbles him immediately.
Yeah.
It was like, because you don't have the background that he's a prior alcoholic and that he's actually in a relationship and she's trying to keep him away from alcohol and she's on this trip and stuff. But you learn all that later. And so it recontextualizes the whole reason he's there. Because then you find out that also Justina sent him a text and was like, hey, you want to come over or whatever. And so it's like, well, at first you think that he's actually just trying to lend a helping hand and be some kind of support. And then later you're like, oh, you're just a piece of trash. Goodness.
Exactly.
Okay. Just a horrible
Like,
person.
oh, okay.
You're just a jerk. Okay. Okay, so you mentioned something on the teacher and her disciplinary measures, which I think is an excellent segue into one of the other points you had in here. So there's a scene in there where Alex, the kid, he needs one of his tasks is to go and get an item from each of the kids, his classmates.
Yeah.
And this goes into the reasons why they all disappear. So he pulls off their name tags from their cubby holes.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like Justine walks in right at the tail end of him doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was weird because she doesn't address it. She's just like, well, I want to have this connecting moment with this kid real quick, and I'll just let it go. But they have this conversation right next to the cubby holes.
Yeah.
And it's like, do you not notice, or does it not matter? So they established earlier in the film that she has maybe some inappropriate interactions with kids, like she oversteps her bounds.
Mm-hmm.
Like the
well, no, it was with the teacher, they said.
No, it was with a kid. She drives a kid home because she lives close to and stuff. So
well, well, that's the thing. It's like she like sleeps around with another teacher, and then she does drive a kid home.
Oh, I didn't hear that part. Okay.
Yeah, no, that was one of the things, because that's what when they're like investigating her, that was what they found out about her past.
When then she had a DUI or something, and
yeah,
that was what Josh Brolin brought up. So Benedict Wong establishes, and he's the principal of this school. He establishes like, hey, you keep overstepping. You're not a parent. You're a teacher. Like, you need to understand where that boundary is at.
Mm-hmm.
And that's in order for her to stop going after Alex to talk to him.
Yeah.
Even though she doesn't listen to that at all.
Mm-hmm.
So that one was one of the ones that kind of stood out, but it wasn't a huge deal because he pulls all the name tags off and she doesn't seem to address it. And I was like, well, I can kind of forgive it because she's more concerned about her relationship with Alex than she is with trying to provide some disciplinary measure in that moment.
Well, yeah, because she is starting to notice that there is like a change in him over the last couple of days prior to the kids leaving. So, yeah, but then again, it's like, if she noticed that, why wouldn't she have reported that to the cops? Although I guess she could have, and like, what are they supposed to do with that information? Like, one of the kids was acting really weird, and it's the one kid who didn't like leave.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know, but like, yeah, it's.
And that also, so I'll take that and transition further into Benedict Wong's character. So there's a scene in there that really just bothered me all around.
Yeah, it's actually in the trailer briefly. Like, you see him like doing the weird
Naruto run.
And he's got like blood all over his face or whatever.
So it's established that he's in this relationship at home, and this character comes by. Her name is Gladys, and she's like the guardian or the aunt of Alex, this one student that didn't disappear.
Mm-hmm.
So you're starting to see these lines that are connecting that are kind of unsettling at best.
Mm-hmm.
So she comes over and establishes that she's the primary antagonist and that she can take control of people's minds, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
The weird thing about it all is that Wong has established that if something's not done, if the parents don't show up, if Alex's parents don't show up, that he's going to call CPS, that they're going to have to do another investigation.
Mm-hmm.
Too many weird things are going on, and he's going to have to intercede, essentially. She comes over, and she's like, I can't have that happen.
Mm-hmm.
It shows what she has to do when that happens. It's just too much of an inconvenience. So she comes over, and she's like, I'm going to do something about it.
Yeah.
But what she does about it led to a couple of like weird questions. I was like, wait a minute. Does this work in this narrative? I suppose it does when you like, if you consider what this would mean, what kind of implications this would bring about.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I was like, I don't think you would really open that can of worms if I were in her shoes. So what happens is she goes to his house, demonstrates that she can control him, has him kill his own partner, and then sends him off after Justine. But this is all done in broad daylight.
Right.
So he runs the same way as all the kids that disappeared, comes after Justine.
With blood all over his face.
Yeah, he's just a mess.
Running through town, and like you hear people reacting like, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
like
what's
they're
going on
freaking
with that
out.
guy?
Yeah.
And then he gets in this huge altercation at this gas station and then ends up getting run over. So I was like, would she really have done this during the day? So on a filmmaker level, I would say it'd be more entertaining if you leaned into the horror element and you have him just kind of standing outside her house, like all messed up and like wide-eyed and stuff.
Uh-huh.
And he's like waiting for night to fall so he can go in and get her or whatever.
That would work, yeah.
You know, you can have him like break in, you can have this interaction that way. But also, why would you do this in broad daylight if it's going to draw attention? Because it might not draw back to her, but if enough strings are put together, like you're gonna follow it back to her, this
Right.
main antagonist character.
Right.
Because you're going to know, like, oh, well, I saw her go up to his house. And then, shortly thereafter, he ran out and went after Justine. So then you're going to start, like, piecing all these things together.
Right.
So I was like, maybe not. Because, she's using this witchcraft or whatever. And police aren't really, they're not equipped to, like, investigate witchcraft, back to its source or whatever. But you're going to get enough information. Yeah. So it was just a weird thing to have opened that can of worms when it didn't really make a whole lot of sense. It didn't justify itself in the movie.
Yeah, it was a very weird way to address the problem, because there is another scene where Gladys has to dress up the house and make it seem like everything's fine. Right. And like it's like
the kids aren't hidden in the basement.
Right. And it's like the CPS or some or investigators or somebody comes by and they're like, okay, well, we're just gonna walk around, and she's like, oh, that's fine. And then she just easily convinces them. And I don't even think she uses witchcraft on them, but It's like, wouldn't that be the time of like, you know what I mean? Because like, wouldn't you rather deal with like 2 CPS officers versus like 15 cops with guns who are going to be coming over to the house? Like, because the thing is once they enter that house and they see the bloody mess of this murdered person,
right,
they're going to red tape that off.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a ton of them there. Because, like, that's serious business now. So it was just weird how, like, her way of addressing it was just so much more of an extreme, like, reaction. And, part of it, I understood, like, the filmmaking intent was, okay, well, here's, like, how we reveal how the character operates. Because it does this weird thing where everything, like, 2/3 in. And then it still has a third to go. And you're like, okay, well, I know everything basically. So what's left to tell? And that's because it's leading up to this really insane ending. So like, it was like in the spirit of, the movie accomplishing its goals, it's fine. But there was moments like that. And there were others too, like smaller or bigger ones, depending on how you look at it, where you're just like, I'm not sure that character would have let something like that go so easily. Or like, I don't know if like somebody who is in this kind of situation would just be okay with that. Like, wouldn't they like kind of press the issue more and you kind of have to just sort of let it go, for lack of a better term? Part of that does work because of the way they depict the characters, though. Like, for example, the police chief, he doesn't seem like a bad police chief. He has this interaction with Josh Brolin's character, and Josh Brolin's like, why aren't you bringing her in, this Justine teacher person? She's clearly the person responsible. And he's like, well, what is it that you think she's done?
Sure.
And there's not really like a clear answer. So like on the one hand, I was like, yeah, well, he's a level-headed police chief. He's like, I'm not just going to arrest some teacher. Like, it doesn't make sense why it would be her. I mean, none of it makes sense, but why would I have to have evidence to arrest somebody.
Yep.
But at the same time, you could also look at that as him being like, I don't know.
Yeah, almost like he's just brushing under the rug. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just kind of like we're doing our best, we're following procedure. I mean, what more do you want? Because they do bring that up a little bit where Justine's criticizing Paul, the cop. She's like, are you actually like trying to solve this thing? And he's like, we're working on it, okay? But like the last time we've been seeing you for the last like 5 hours, you've just been out to a bar drinking.
Yeah.
Yeah,
just sleeping around on your wife or whatever.
And then you're like, oh, I'm all hungover or whatever, and then going to work, like, like so, like I get it. Like he was off and he was doing other things, like he was trying to support a friend, or at least initially. So I'm like, okay, but at the same time, it doesn't really feel like you're taking this very seriously,
Yeah, and it was like alluding to that sentiment in order for you to kind of be thrown off the scent, I suppose. Okay, so with all that, let's do the ending real quick.
Yeah.
Let's do a couple of our theories as to like what this movie is trying to embody.
Okay.
And then we'll call it there.
Sounds good.
So this movie has a crazy freaking end.
Yeah, that's pretty great.
It's awesome. It's it's where it kind of gets super self-indulgent. It's like, all right, we've kind of raised a bunch of tensions and led you on a bunch of times, but I think we'll just deliver on all of it right now.
Yeah. If you're still on the fence and you haven't seen it and you've just been watching our spoiler section, here's your final warning. Go see it now. And I will just say this. The easiest way I can summarize the ending is it's a lot like the ending in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where it's super violent and graphic, But at the same time, it's really funny because it's not what you were thinking was going to happen. And so then you're like, oh, okay.
Okay, so we found out that the junkie and the cop have both been also put under Gladys's spell. So we got the kids, we got them, and then we've got the two parents, Alex's parents, that are all zombified, essentially.
Yeah.
So Alex is in the house, terrified, trying to figure out how he's going to get away because Gladys is going to take him away once morning comes around.
Mm-hmm.
Gladys is somewhere in the house, and then you have Josh Brolin and Justine roll up, and they're like, all of our points of interest or our points of data have brought us here.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we're just going to go in. So it's weird because the cop comes out and he like beckons them, but he does it weird. Like you can tell something's wrong with him.
Well, and they sit there in the car for a while, Josh Brolin and Justine, or what's her name? Julia Gardner or whatever.
Yeah.
But the two of them are like, well, do we call more police? Do we go in? They're like, there's already a cop car. So, I mean, they clearly know something. I really like that inclusion because then it was so much more justified why they went in because they're like, well, there's already a police officer here. Because I was thinking like, yeah, you'd call the cops, right. But they're already there.
They're already there. So why do you need to?
And
he's the one that comes out and tells them to come in. So they're like, oh, okay, well, we're good to go then.
It's awkward and strange, but also like it's him.
Right.
So you're not thinking
be able to trust it.
That he's a zombie. Why would you be?
Right. So they go in, and then obviously it just lends to chaos. So there's this huge fight scene where all the zombies are attacking the sentient people. So the parents are after Alex, and then the two zombies are after Julia Gardner and Josh Brolin. So this is where it really indulges itself, because like it's hyper violent, and it hasn't been up until this point. But there's a scene in there which was just so rough. The cop picks Justine up, and he's like choking her to death, and she grabs this whatever the peeler for
potato peeler.
Yeah. And just goes to town on his face. Rough, gnarly scene.
Ugh.
And then
Nasty.
the junkie character, which that scene was hilarious because he's this little like 120-pound kid.
Yeah, he's some dweeb
trying to go after Josh Brolin. So Brolin's just chucking him around the house. But since he's zombified, like he doesn't feel pain and it doesn't get knocked out, so he just keeps coming. And so Josh Brolin's like, "What do I have to do?" Because he's not losing the fight, but he also is like, I can't do this forever. Just throw this guy around the house. He keeps running and then just like grabs him and chucks him over the couch. And then he grabs him and chucks him over the table.
And then he's like got him on the ground and he like smacks him in the face.
Like,
and then
beating the crap
that knocks him out. And he's like, oh, all right. And then bam. It's like over and over. It's like, sheesh. Like.
So finally, Julia Gardner grabs...
I love that they paired the squirmy zombie after him because he's just like, oh, this is not a big deal, but also like he's not gonna stop.
Yeah, there's no way to end this guy. So finally, Julia Gardner gets a hold of a gun and she shoots the cop and the junkie, and Josh Brolin just gets locked into the fact that his kids is downstairs.
Yeah.
So he's like, okay, I gotta go take care of that. So he goes down,
and then there's a Blair Witch moment.
Right, exactly. Which was, that actually got me to laugh too, because the way she's standing there, she's like, it cracked me up. I was like, that's not the way I expected to find her. But the funny thing was, so she gets a hold of Josh Brolin, and then he tries to choke out Julia Gardner. Alex upstairs figures out that he can get control of the methods that the witch uses on the kids.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes up and he activates the kids himself. And it's hilarious. So it's these little branches you wrap around a personal object and then mix it with some of your blood. You snap it, and then you get to control or whatever. So he does it. And as soon as he does it, the witch knows. He goes, oh, no. And it's hilarious because you know that something is about to go down.
Right, because she's going on with like her evil scheme. She's like, don't kill her just yet. And she's just like, I've got everything. And then it just suddenly goes, oh, no. And then she just...
Books it.
She's
like, I'm out. She takes off, and then she's chased by all of these kids. And they just come running through, and it doesn't matter what's in their way. They just plow through the walls and the windows and kitchens. And it's just ridiculously long chase scene.
Yeah.
Where everybody's just going nuts. So like, what? There's like a dude mowing, and he sees the lady like running. He's like, that. And then all these kids are chasing her. He's like, what is going on in this neighborhood? Finally, they catch up to her. And they indulged. They're
It
like,
was
what
nasty.
would happen if a bunch of mindless kids caught up with someone and they're supposed to kill her? I guess we'll just have her rip her limb from limb, probably. That's probably how it would go down. So we'll just do that.
Yeah.
And you see all of it. You see arms and legs, and her face gets ripped off, and it's gnarly. But that's how it ends.
It was some sweet revenge, though, because she was a pretty detestable character.
She was despicable.
Which, again, is kind of why it was like that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood thing, where you were just like, well, what you guys actually did was pretty awful. So it's hard to feel bad.
Yeah, for what happened to you in this movie. And then Josh Brolin picks up his kid, and then it goes into this narrative about how the kids remained pretty much catatonic, and so did Alex's parents.
Mm-hmm.
She says eventually some of them started talking again or whatever. And Josh Brolin, who was under the control, he ended up coming back as well.
Yeah, he seemed fine. But he was only under the spell for a couple minutes.
Right. So we had a couple of theories as to why that was, and I figured I'd throw it over to you for your theories.
Well, it seemed like the longer you're under the spell, the more it erodes you away. Like, I think when it puts you into that zombie state, it's weird, though, because they have to be fed. So I'm like, okay, so bodily functions are still working,
yeah, it has
I guess.
sustain you. Like, you're still a human being. So you gotta probably have to
Not necessarily. I mean, because zombies don't need any sustenance.
But it is, I mean, under her spell, I think it was like they don't have any will of their own, but they still require, food. They need to eat.
Well, then what happens to their mind? Other than that, I don't know, the black magic just erases the mind, like the memories over time, I suppose.
So my thought initially was that because she didn't release them, it kind of just left them as she had them. So when she died, it just kind of severed the connection.
Mm-hmm.
And there wasn't anything to come back and replace because she didn't put them back. Essentially,
I see.
She messed up the room, and then eventually maybe it'll get unmessed. But
I see.
The way that she left him. But on a meta level, we were trying to figure out what that represented because the guy said it was potentially autobiographical. He was putting a bunch of his own experience into this. So one of your theories was potentially this was some commentary on COVID or something, where a bunch of the kids, were disconnected from reality, to some extent, to where they didn't have a whole lot of personality of their own. They were kind of mindless drones by the time they came out of it.
And then everybody's isolated away,
right?
And then everybody becomes isolated, everyone becomes a zombie, and
everyone's unsure of what to fear also.
Yeah, unsure of what to fear. That's a good point. And also characters being really self-destructive. So it was kind of but that I don't think that was something that the writer was thinking about necessarily. I think that was more just indicative of that. Well, so because I was proposing, because some people have been suggesting, will this be an Oscar movie? And it's kind of hard when you're trying to guess a horror movie for Oscar status because it's just so rare. So this one could, but I feel if it does, it'll just be a screenplay nomination. I would be surprised if it got anything else. Even though I think it would be deserving, I think the cinematography was really nice and the editing was really sharp.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be opposed to. I thought it was different and original, but if there was to be that best picture slot for it, because now that we have 10 nominees, it's a lot easier for something to have that opportunity to get there that it ordinarily would not.
Sure.
So because of that, I kind of wonder, I'm it could do that, but then it would probably be on a representative of COVID scenario where it's because they would highlight it as okay, this feels like it's tapping into our cultural consciousness somehow. And they would just nominate it forward for that reason, even if they don't know that's why or how to articulate it necessarily.
Sure. Yeah, that's fair. But outside of that, he was commenting that this is potentially to deal with his grief of the loss of a friend.
Mm-hmm.
And we were trying to figure that out, and even after more thought, I have not figured out how that happened.
Well, he did say that he didn't want the movie to come across that way, so it was more that's what inspired him, even if that isn't something that he's communicating deliberately, right?
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I don't see grief as really that pertinent of a subject in it, really. Not so much.
No. I mean, the loss of self is obviously prominent through the film, and then how one deals with that, like Alex specifically with dealing with parents.
Mhm.
But it wasn't focused around that either. They're just elements that exist in the film rather than being primary narrative drivers.
Mhm.
But
that was also a commentary moment too, when Alex is trying to get his parents to wake up, and he's like splashes water on his dad's face to get him to like respond and not be a zombie anymore. I mean, anything that's like doing the like disconnect between parents and young people these days seems very timely.
Sure. Well, do you have anything else you'd like to add for this film?
No, it was a wild ride.
Yes, it was.
Very interesting movie.
Would recommend seeing it at least once.
Yeah, absolutely. And like bring some friends, even some people who don't really like horror movies. Like they're just going to cover their eyes if it's too graphic, but they'll still enjoy the movie, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, would recommend.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for watching. See you next time. So you made it to the end of the video. If you liked it, please consider subscribing and leave us a comment. We'd love to hear what you thought.